Hello my loyal companions, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be the updated Rogue tier list, bringing you everything you need to know about the current meta within Rogue Company since the introduction of the new Rogue Seeker. I'm going to go through every single Rogue and give you details about why they currently are where I've placed them, and exactly how they fit into the meta currently within Rogue Company. If you do go on to enjoy the video, or you just want to see daily, educational Rogue Company content, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel. But for now, let's get into it. I always like to let you guys know the structure of my tier list, so there's no real questions about what each tier means. Therefore, for the purposes of this tier list here, S tier are going to be the core rogues in the meta right now who absolutely fit into it well and will be so good for you to pick up in this current meta. The A tier are going to be rogues who also excel in the meta, but are just not as valuable or have as much in their kit that's valuable as the S tier rogues. B tier rogues are not crucial rogues to the current meta, but may have some aspect to counter it or just fit nicely into it, but they are not the core rogues you want to pick up, but they may be valuable here or there as one extra flex pick on the team. C tier rogues then are going to be rogues who are just countered by the current meta and are not as strong because of it, and D tier rogues are going to be those rogues who I believe are just unusable currently within the game. When doing this tier list, I came to the conclusion that no rogue is actually really bad currently within the game, and everyone has a viable place here or there, even if it's not the strongest, and this is what that tier list is going to decide between. But what is the meta within Rogue Company right now since the Seeker patch release? The game has transitioned into a very aggressive type of meta, using intel rogues to find information and then immediately going off, getting picks and building momentum for your team. That means rogues with reveals, those with lethal since the tenacity nerf made it much weaker, and those with good utility to push will be very high up in this tier list. Anvil is going to be placed up in the A tier. He has a very good kit that helps him in the current meta with flashbang immunity, APSs, which will obviously counter some of the hard breaching. He has great survivability in his perks with life drain, but more importantly, headstrong and tenacity, which is the only way you're going to survive a fully upgraded C4 or a grenade. He also has a C4 himself, which has such high damage at the moment and great defensive utility. And generally, Anvil is going to be this very defensive rogue. His ability in itself is great for retake purposes like we've talked about before, or simply just blocking off an angle that you know the enemy team are pushing really hard based off of these other rounds. He also has the LMG, which can just put lead down range sometimes, and that is what you need. And his gun is not that bad. The Arbitrator obviously hit a big nerf and is not that viable on him, but the LMG has been the preferred weapon normally anyway. For all these reasons, that is why Anvil is going to be on the A tier as a very solid rogue you may want to pick up on the defensive side of the map. Next up is going to be Chaac. Chaac is a very aggressive rogue and you think would fit into this meta quite well. My one exception with him is that his weapons, whilst great, are not necessarily the best in their class at the moment, and the flashbang is a good piece of utility, but again, not the best based on everything we see. Lethals tend to be more important, and unless you're getting a stick with that Semtex, it's not going to be as impactful as some other lethals we see. His perk set is obviously great, and he's a fantastic duelist and a fantastic front, headstrong, tanky kind of rogue, but beyond that, he's not as useful as he was in the sort of revive meta we had with Dahlia, Link, and Saint. Therefore, I'm going to be putting Chaac in the B tier as a rogue you may want to blend into the comp at some point, but isn't a crucial rogue that you're going to want every single time. Next up is Dahlia, who has always, in my eyes, been an S tier rogue. But since the tenacity nerf, since the pretty much destructional nerfs of her weapons, and since the nerf to her ability where she can no longer link to downed enemies, so must pre-link to somebody in the plane, means that she has really suffered on this list. She will always be a great rogue for strategic play. If you want to link to a Scorch for double fire immunity, whether you want to link to Trench for double nades, she's a great option. But Dahlia really depends on other rogues at the moment, and the supportive playstyle isn't as good in this current meta. None of the top tier rogues are necessarily worth linking to as much, and her medic role isn't as strong as Saint's at the moment. Therefore, with all of this combined, Dahlia has unfortunately and heartbreakingly for me, moved down to the B tier. Dallas is next on the list, and he is a very strong rogue at the moment. Not only does he fall into the intel category of rogues, where his reveal and snap has so much weight, he also has two of the best guns in the game if you're accurate and can hit your shots. I've been raving about Dallas for a while, how strong he is, and his pick potential is massive. The reveal obviously has so much weight to it, and if you're good with that weapon, you can do so much with Dallas, especially with the recharge passive, to move from target to target. Therefore, Dallas with his perk set and the sheer power he can bring to a team comp to stop flankers or just to reveal enemies and where they're going is going to bring up all the way to the S tier for this tier list. Dima is next on the list, and you would think he would benefit massively from the tenacity nerf, so his explosives do far more damage, and whilst this is absolutely true, Dima's place in the game is still not as solid as some other rogues. Dima's Merv launcher has always been very easy to run away from, and whilst he can now get an upgraded grenade that is far more effective, the Merv launcher is meant to be his main kit, and if enemies are able to move away from that, it's not as useful. He does thankfully have his passive Burned, which reveals enemies when they're hit by explosives, and that is great for this intel meta, and his perk set surely isn't bad and with good weapons, but he doesn't fit into the meta as a rogue you want to be picking up all the time, and honestly Kestrel just does his job better. Therefore Dima is going to come down into the B tier as a rogue you may want to pick up for certain maps and strategies, but not one that is pure meta and that you want to be using all the time. Fixer is next on the list, and Fixer really does suffer in this current meta. The big thing with Fixer is that he can hide behind his smoke using his ability and be safe to get those crucial sniping picks off. However, with the massive focus on intel at the moment, using reveals, using Seeker's bow, using sticky sensors, using Dahlia or Talon, Fixer really does not benefit from sitting in his smoke that much anymore. Phantom, especially being such a hard counter, is going to make him suffer too. And whilst his weapons are great, and he does have such great pick potential, and he has a C4 himself, which is so strong at the moment, I don't think he is as meta as he once was. I do not think he is as strong. I think he's very, very counterable now, and therefore he's going to drop all the way into the C tier, into this category of rogues who are just so hard countered by the current meta, whether it be the reveals, the flashbangs, or the nades, which he really can't survive. Glitch is next on the list, and Glitch really did benefit from this patch. His hack ability now has far more use, being able to hack the trophy systems, which are so much more prevalent, being able to survive with tenacity and headstrong, and just generally having the flash grenade if you want some sort of push. He also has a sort of intel playstyle, but it is very flank reliant for the intel, and isn't as good as other intel rogues, as I said in my who are the best intel rogues in the game video that I put up very recently. So Glitch does have a bigger weight within the game, but is still not as strong as some people may have liked. Glitch for me is going to be placed in the B tier of this list. I think he is definitely strong. I definitely think he can counter some of the meta options at the moment with that EMP being so valuable, but I do not think that's accelerated him into a very high tier rogue within the current meta, but he has benefited somewhat from this patch. Kestrel comes in next, and as I said, Kestrel does Dima's job just a little bit better. The bounce grenade gives far more angles that are valuable, and whilst it is kind of by tenacity, unlike Dima's normal grenade, it is still great at picking off those targets without tenacity. She also has her ultimate ability, which is so good for flushing people out of positions, and with this meta that is very breach heavy and very aggressive, Kestrel really benefits from this so well. She has the ultimate ability to flush people out of position and thirst them, and stim shots if she gets in multiple fights. Not to mention the Riptide is honestly one of the best guns in the game. If you can lock onto people's heads with that, it is so strong in terms of time to kill. Honestly nerf worthy, and that is why Kestrel is so good at the moment. Not to mention with the tanked economy system that really does mean you struggle to earn money without in the game, Kestrel's passive allows her to be so much more viable now, and you can buy almost everything in the additional rounds that we now have within the game, meaning that her kit is so available to you, and she doesn't suffer from early round pistols. All of this together means that Kestrel is going to be placed in the A tier for me as a solid rogue you want to be picking up throughout some of your games. Next comes in Lancer, and before I talk about Lancer, I want to make it very clear once again, this is a demolition tier list, not a strikeout tier list where Lancer is absolute S tier queen. In the demolition meta, Lancer is really suffering at the moment. Yes, she can counter every single reveal other than Talon Dart currently within the game by using her ability, but the issue she's currently having is that the amount of reveals and the amount of different time that people could reveal you means that her flanks are not as viable anymore. Whether you accidentally run over a sticky sensor before you pop your ability, whether you get snapped by Dahlia too early, or just revealed by a haymaker arrow from Seeker, Lancer's flank potential really isn't that strong, and without the flank potential, she isn't as good as other rogues. She's very hard countered by this intel meta due to the amount of intel available. If there's only one intel rogue, she may get away with it, but with multiple intel rogues coming out on teams, she is going to suffer, and therefore she can be placed in the C tier of this list. Phantom comes in next to the tier list, and she sort of has two different playstyles. She has the sniper playstyle, which I think is much weaker. Snipers are not as valuable at the moment into these heavy rushes unless you get a very early pick on a long range map. But her Nightshade, Sticky Sensor, Tracker Rounds and Nano Smoke playstyle is really good at the moment. It's not necessarily as good as other intel rogues, but it's not bad at all. She has great weapons, she has the sticky sensors for information, and pairing her with Seeker means you get a total of 4 sticky sensors across the map, which can basically guard every single angle you may need. She's a great place in the meta right now with strong weapons in the Nightshade and the full body if you decide to use it, and she has a grenade as well, meaning that she can get really great picks off even through tenacity when she fully upgrades that. For this reason and for others, she's going to be placed up in the A tier as a solid rogue you may want to blend into some of your team comms right now. Ronin comes in next, and Ronin I've always raved about as a solid rogue, a great solo queue rogue who can fit into any single situation, and that is very, very true. However, Ronin is not as strong as she once was. She is not a monster powerhouse that she really was. Her weapons are still great, her grenade is still great, her smoke grenade is still great, and the insta-kill you can get from her knife from direct impact is also really beneficial. She hasn't necessarily got much worse, but she isn't as good as other rogues at dealing with the current meta. She is obviously immune to Talon, which is very, very nice considering he's so strong in the meta right now, but that doesn't mean she is as viable in S tier. Therefore, I'm dropping her down to the A tier as still a very solid rogue. You may want to blend into a situation, maybe even get a Dahlia in there from the flex and pair them together to be immune to Talon, but I don't think she is a necessary core meta rogue within the current core meta of Rogue Company. Coming in next is Saint, and with the nerf to Dahlia and Dahlia being so weak currently in the meta given her position and the nerfs available to her, Saint is now your go-to medic. If you want a distinction between the two, Saint is the medic of the team. He is the one you want if you're looking for global revives and revive pressure. Dahlia is the one you want if you're specifically trying to pair with a passive and trying to use something tactically, whether it be Ronin, whether it be trench double nades, or whether it be fire immunity with Scorch. That is Dahlia's purpose for strategic use and one revive, whereas Saint is going to be your more global revive kind of pressure. Saint's weapons are obviously very, very strong. The Mamba can really beam if you're good with it, and the M4, in my opinion, is the easiest gun in Rogue Company to use. It basically has no recoil and can beam at long ranges. He has a C4 available to him and a smoke grenade, which are great pieces of equipment, with bounce back and headstrong for a little bit of survivability as well. He is definitely not bad, but he is not necessarily core meta. Revives, whilst amazing, aren't necessary currently within the game because so many rogues have lifeline or helping hands, meaning they can just revive instead manually. But if you're looking for a medic, Saint is your go-to, and therefore he's going to come into this flex role as a B tier rogue. Scorch comes in next, and Scorch with the Arbitrator was a big problem for a long time, and the nerf that came through to the Arbitrator, nerfing its damage by 10, has done absolutely nothing really to solve that. Scorch using her ability completely counteracts the nerf, and she's still one-shot you to the body with the Arbitrator, still has replenish available, still has insane tankiness with headstrong and tenacity, has great reload time with nimble hands and the upgrade to the Arbitrator, or even if you just want to use the SLC, with that gun it's an absolute beamer, and she can basically outgun and outtrade anybody within the game as long as it's that kind of close to maybe medium range. If you get outside of that, she's not very good, and that's why I don't personally like her for solo queue due to the lack of availability. But in demolition meta, if you can hold an angle with either of those weapons, you have so much survivability with your immunity to fire as well, that she is absolutely S tier currently within the game still, and I definitely think you should be picking her up if you're looking to have something tanky and something with good damage in your demolition games if you're squadded up. Next on the list is the new rogue Seeker. Seeker has been a great addition to the game, and if you'd watched my video where I talked about who the best intel rogue is, I place Seeker up there. I think his adaptability in his weapons and the way you can reveal everybody in the team with a good bounce from that bow puts him at a really high valued position. He also has the bow which recharges very, very quickly and sticky sensors as well, meaning Seeker can basically reveal the entire map using these pieces of equipment. He also has a bounce nade which with his passive will always kill someone through tenacity because he has the increased damage from his passive on that bounce nade, meaning he has such great potential and counters tenacity from round 1. I in fact don't even buy tenacity if there's a Seeker on the enemy team because I just don't think it's worth it at this point. Seeker is really, really good. He does suffer in some areas, but the fact that he doesn't have much survivability, and if you get caught out of position, you really are kind of screwed. Unlike other rogues who have a bit of survivability or counterplay, Seeker is a little bit more narrow in that. He is sort of just there for the reveal and then the help with the push and holding slightly longer angles. He, for me though, is going to drop into the A tier as a rogue. Very, very solid in A tier, borderline S. But I think Dallas, with his just absolute domination in terms of gunplay, puts him slightly higher. And I think Seeker just has a bit too high a skill cap with that bow that people need to learn a little bit more. Sigird is up next, and Sigird has been a big problem for a while in terms of being so weak. There was a big bug with her shield. If you shot her shield, she couldn't regenerate her health. It stopped her health regeneration. That has now been fixed. That also actually includes Scorch, who if she stands in her fire now, she can regenerate her health, whereas it never used to let her regenerate health before. Also, flashbangs and EMPs no longer stop your health regeneration either, which is a great addition, great bug fix to the game that's bringing a lot more rogues into viability. But specifically with Sigird, it means she can now stim shot and heal behind her shield, which has brought her much closer into the meta. The small warrant buff didn't do much, and she has okay weapons that are built for close range. The problem is, at the moment, with incendiary grenades and normal grenades being so valuable and so useful, unless she is so on it and blocking them with her shield, which is hard against good players, she isn't really that viable. She's okay and she can fit into some situations, but she's still going to remain in the C tier as a rogue who's just kind of countered by the current meta, where everything is going on, explosions are happening left, right, and center, and Sigird can't always deal with that as much as she thinks she would be able to. Talon is next up on the list, and Talon is a fantastic intel rogue as well. Being able to guard one area of the map, or multiple depending on how you use mag gloves to reclaim that dart, means that he is so good at controlling areas of the map. Ronin is his only counter in terms of not being able to be seen on the mini-map, but he's in a really good spot at the moment. He has flashbangs for an aggressive push, he has C4 for a defensive push, he has a great weapon in the LMPX with life drain as well. He even has tenacity, which again won't help too much in the current meta, but will maybe help him in some of the early rounds before those lethals have been upgraded, which is good for survivability. Overall though, Talon fits into the intel style of the meta and the heavy push, breach, and pick people off kind of part of the meta, so he's really good right now, and I definitely recommend picking him up, and for that reason he's going to be up there in the S tier of this tier list. Trench comes in next, and Trench has been low down the tier list for a while in my eyes. His APSs and his general slowing down of breaching hasn't been that useful, but now it really is. As more people are looking to use lethals, those trophy systems and APSs are becoming far more valuable, and the barbed wire being really good at slowing people down when they do try and initiate that push. His weapons obviously aren't the greatest unless you're godly with the HRM, but he's still perfectly viable to use in this defensive playstyle, really just slowing down and stopping key lethals from coming out onto your teammates. For these reasons, he's going to be placed on the B tier. As a rogue, you may want to flex in on your defensive side of the map to just sort of build a solid defensive core that could help you against some of these heavy breachers. Lastly then on the tier is going to be the Toxic Queen Vi herself, who has been so strong and we all feared would be nerfed after the tenacity nerf when it was removed from her in replacement of bounce back. Little did we know, tenacity getting a nerf actually means her getting bounce back is probably more of a buff, and she's even stronger, so she's struggled from S tier to staying in S tier on this tier list. She does a great job at slowing people down. She has tracker rounds available to her. She has great survivability now with bounce back, gaining extra health and permanently damaging enemies' health. She just has a great role within Incendiary Grenade, such great zone control, and honestly it's hard to see a position where Vi isn't going to be S tier as we continue this game. She's just so strong. Great weapons, great kit, and great availability in any sort of team comp you might want. Again, that is why she's going to be S tier. Okay guys, so here is the completed tier list, and as I said, this is all based on the current heavy intel, heavy lethal, and heavy push meta that we're seeing. Getting these picks and momentum is so valuable, and that is why these S tier rogues are so good. These S tier rogues are rogues who really fit into this intel playstyle, have great lethals, or very simply are just solid all round at having a kit to survive, push, and counteract the meta that is currently happening. They're really, really valuable, and you want to be picking up these rogues as much as possible. The A tier rogues obviously are great options as well, not as good as the S tier rogues, but still perfectly viable to pick up in games. They can do great jobs at solo carrying your games, and they provide great additions to the current meta in helping what these top tier rogues want to do. These B tier rogues are going to be rogues who do have some place in the meta. They can be used as sort of flex picks. You maybe want to get 3 solid rogues from the A and S tier, and then bring in 1 from B tier, whether it be your medic, whether it be your trench for defensive side, or your Dahlia for a specific link. Whatever it be, they're going to be the sort of flex pick you want to bring in. Then we have C tier, who are rogues who I just do not think are great in the meta right now. They're countered by it in some way, whether it be the reveals who fix the smoke, the anti-flank sort of meta with all these reveals, or Sigird, who is just not quite there still yet within the game. And of course D tier are rogues who are unusable, and as I said in the video, no rogue is unusable at the moment. They're all pretty solid currently within the game. Remember guys, if you want to learn more about these rogues, I have a rogue guide for every single rogue here on the channel. I am still to do Kestrel and SEEKER, but they will be coming soon. And if you're not sure who to unlock next and you just want to try somebody but not quite sure which one will fit your playstyle, check out my who to unlock next video, which will show you exactly who is best for you to unlock based on your different playstyle. Okay then guys, that takes us to the end of the video, and if you did enjoy, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. You can also come follow me on twitch.tv/RADTHARGAMING to see live gameplay commentaries, guides, Q&As, and playing with viewers. All the links you're going to need are down in the description below, but for now, I hope you have a fantastic day. And remember, be loyal, be brave, be relentless, and I'll catch you in the next video.